What's going on, everybody? This is Steve from Bloom Audio, and Ibasso just dropped their DX260 Mark II DAW. And we've got a lot of questions about what's new, what's different, is it worth upgrading, and all of that. So we're going to check out the DX260 Mark II, talk about a couple of the differences between that and the original, and help you decide if it's worth the upgrade. So let's take a closer look. Now, the first difference you might notice isn't anything about specs or the look of the device, but the price. Price did go up by $150 from $949 for the original 260 to $1099 for the 260 Mark II. Some of that is probably just due to inflation, increased cost of goods coming out of China, but there are some improvements there. Just the simple fact that they've upgraded the internal storage, which if you've ever shopped for an iPhone, you know how much getting an extra 64 gigs can cost you on a device. Practically speaking, though, the big updates are that upgraded internal storage, the Snapdragon 665 SoC rather than the 660, and the fact that the original shipped with Android 11 and the Mark II ships with Android 13. But there are some more important details in there. Visually, the look of this remains exactly the same. Added an additional color though, so now you can get it with a white background in addition to the same sort of navy blue, dark gray background of the original. And of course, you'll see that little MK2 on there. Now, there were no changes listed for the screen, but this could be related to a change in Android or something else. I noticed the screen looked a little brighter and more vibrant, especially at lower to mid brightness settings than the original DX260. So that's most likely a software optimization change and not a hardware change, but I did prefer the screen on the Mark II. So the first thing I did was kind of get one of each in my hand, flip around, look at some load times and other things. And Mark II was definitely just a little bit faster, a little bit more responsive, a little bit snappier. It wasn't a huge difference. I wouldn't be crying if I had to go back to the original and waiting an extra 10 milliseconds for my apps to load. But over extended use, it was noticeable that there was an improvement in the Mark II. Now, what's funny about that is that sort of upgrade from the Snapdragon 660 to the 665 is not actually a pure upgrade. I decided to download some benchmarking tools onto the devices, and the 660 is actually better at more intense graphic applications. Now, neither of these are, incredible graphics, video editing, super powerful chips here. These are both designed for just your daily use, basic applications, things like you're going to use on a DAW. So, don't get excited to download Fortnite on here or something and get a great gaming experience either way. So while the 660 does still outperform the 665 for more intense rendering and graphics operations, 665 wins in just about every other category. So as you got the test here we ran on PCMark on both devices, the work performance score, the Mark II had a 600-point advantage. Interestingly enough, though, for web browsing, the Mark II still outperformed it slightly. But in every other category, you'll notice a pretty big difference of at least a few hundred points for the Mark II over the original. We also ran a battery stress test. Now you'll notice that both these devices hit about 5 hours. Again, the DX260 Mark II got 18 minutes more total time. And I think that's going to translate into at least about an hour of practical use time. So this was a stress test with the screen brightness turned all the way up, running constant operations. And that was also the test ran the battery from 80% to 20%. So you're going to probably get pretty close to that 14-hour battery estimate that Ibasso provides for the 260 Mark II in more practical use. I think that's still a bit high. It's going to depend how high your volume is, if you're using like the fur filters or other features on the device. But overall, this is going to be a solid pick for a full day of listening to music. Another big question that we've got on this one was, is there actually any difference in the sound? Now, initially, I actually thought I preferred The MK2 sound, I felt like it was a little bit softer in the highs, where I felt the original was maybe a touch analytical. And I was going back and forth, and there really is some difference. Like, vocal presentation feels more natural and other things. And then I realized that I had the filters set differently. I had the fur maxed out on the original with a fast roll-off filter, and I had it on the slow filter with the fur off on the 260 Mark II. When I lined them up, I really couldn't tell the difference between the two blind, but I do think that's an interesting point to make, that, if you don't love the way a device sounds out of the box, in addition to burn-in and all of that, definitely play with the filters a little bit and try to see if there are some small tweaks that are going to enhance your enjoyment. And turning all the features on, especially when it comes to any kind of additional filtering, oversampling, upsampling, any of that, may not actually create the sound that you prefer, even if there are technical advantages to that. Now, one last difference is the DX260 makes some changes to the power system so that when the device is plugged in, it can separate the charging of the battery from the power. So you're getting that direct power rather than power off the battery. Didn't notice a huge difference with this, listening to some over-ear headphones plugged in versus unplugged versus the original DX260. So while there may be some sonic advantage here, it wasn't immediately apparent. It didn't immediately, make my planar magnetic headphones come alive in a way that they didn't. It's not at the same level as what Ibasso did with the DX340, where it does indeed make it feel more like a desktop device in terms of the current power for planar magnetic headphones. So kind of wrapping that up, if you've already got a DX260, there's not really a big difference here that I would say, definitely run out and do the upgrade. Now, if you didn't get a DX260 because you didn't like that it was running a more dated Android version, or you just felt it wasn't quite there in terms of things like the internal storage, the performance, or any of that, the Mark II is a nice update that gives you a little bit better performance, twice as much internal storage, and just feels like just a slight improvement over the DX260 in basically every way. Then it's worth checking out. Or if you're new to this and are just right now looking for a device in the $1,000 range, DX260 Mark II is going to give you a really clean, detailed, technically strong sound, with enough options to use the filters and other features to tweak that a little bit to your preference. And it's got great battery life and a nice pocketable form factor. So definitely a great pick for anyone looking for something in the $1,000 range. Or if you felt the original DX260 wasn't quite there for what you need, definitely come back and check out the DX260 Mark II. Thanks for watching. You can check out Ibasso's complete line of digital audio players and a lot of other great products at bloomaudio.com. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll be back soon with more high-fidelity audio content.